Hi, it's Marygrace Anderson, and today I'm honored to bore you to sleep with stories about stories. And these were stories that I was read to as a child, and some were made up, but some were the classics. So you might know a few of them, and you might learn a few new ones. Because today I want to combine what I was read when I was a child and what I have been reading to my child as he grew up. And so some of them are based on classic USA stories, and the other ones are from the UK. So I hope you like this combination. And again, I won't tell you the whole story. I'll just tell you stories that I used to love and a little summary of them and why. So you don't really have to listen. You don't have to pay attention. And if you really love the stories or ones that I mentioned, you can email me directly and I'll give you more of the details so you can buy it as well. And all you need to do now is make yourself comfortable and enjoy being bored to sleep with my stories about stories. I hope you sleep well, and let's begin. So make yourself comfortable, and starting off as usual on your back. And then I just need you to take in a nice, deep, comfortable breath in. And then as you exhale, just allow your eyes to close down and focus on your breathing and the steady, gentle rhythm of breathing out and in. Knowing that with every breath that you exhale, every nerve, muscle, and fiber throughout your entire body will release all tension, stresses, and strains away from you and into the bed, leaving you to feeling even more relaxed with nothing to do. Nothing to think about, nothing to bother with. This is your special time just to rest, sleep, and dream. You can leave all of today's activities behind you and forget about tomorrow and just focus on right now. Let your mind go blank. And once again, I'd like you to take in a nice, deep, comfortable breath in. Hold it for just a moment. And again, exhale and allow all the muscles of the body just to let go and relax. And just take a moment to scan the entire body from the top of your head all the way down to the very tips of your toes, making sure you're really comfy, not too hot and not too cold. Okay, let's begin. I hope you enjoy some of these stories because they're all fantastic in their own way. We never did super long stories. I think it's a preference as to whether you like a short story or hearing a chapter every night before you fall asleep. I didn't mind whether it was a short story or a long story. I just loved having someone read to me as I fell asleep. One of my favorites of all time was called The Giving Tree. It's a really lovely story about the friendship between a tree and a boy, and how they grow up together, and their friendship, and teaching us life lessons about giving and sharing and being. It's a beautiful, beautiful story if you've never read it. And then you'd have short stories that were quite fun to read, like a Dr. Seuss, his sleep book, and that amazing ability that he has to make the rhymes. Such fun, and yet at the same time, you could fall asleep with a smile on your face. Any of his I really enjoyed. But if we were going to go into longer stories, I really loved the story of Charlotte's Web. I think it was the first time I ever heard a story that had people and animals interacting with each other, and then again learning the lesson of that unconditional love one can have for the other, and also appreciating the circle of life that story tells us and leaves us with. But that book has such a good combination of humor, friendship, love, giving, sharing, and leaving you at the end with an inspiration to help others. You might even have a story that you remember now that was just about relationships between people and animals that were silly, but yet filled with that incredible understanding of love and friendship. My other favorite one was The Princess Bride. I'm sure you might have seen it in the movies, but the book, as narrated in the movie, was just as wonderful. Again, it had that great combination of humor, adventure, friendships, and that ability that goodness and love always win in the end. The amazing thing about most of the stories that I remember being told when I was little was made-up stories. My dad was really exceptionally good at making up stories. And in particular, he had a story that he called Billy Boy Stories. It was based on the son of a friend of his. And the story always told us about Billy Boy doing something naughty, and in the end learning his lesson. I'm sure it was my dad's way of installing good manners in all of us. But they were fun and they were touching. And the funny thing about those stories was that my dad would make up different voices for different people. That's a real talent. I'm not very good at it, but again, doesn't matter. What matters is just having the story being told to you and listening as you fall asleep. And then as we move on and have children of your own, or perhaps babysitting, I highly recommend Charlie and Lola, in particular the one called I'm Not Sleepy and I Will Not Go to Bed. A simple story which happens all the time in real life, of one child not wanting to go to bed and the other helping them fall asleep. Sometimes as children we get so excited about things that are happening in our day that it is difficult to fall asleep because we don't realize how tired we actually are. Sometimes you just need a signal or a routine or someone to read to you a story to help you fall asleep. Another one of my favorites that I like to read to my son was Have You Filled a Bucket Today? The bucket representing goodness. Thinking of things that you can do through your day that make you feel good and other people feel good. I remember once someone mentioning that you always sleep better at the end of a day if you've lived a good day, meaning taking care of yourself and other people. Another classic was Goodnight Moon. That is a fantastic way to fall asleep. Just going around saying goodnight to things in your room, people, the nighttime, the darkness, the stars. Everyone who has ever read Goodnight Moon could probably recite it from beginning to end. But my point isn't to read the story to you. It's just to tell you about what it represents. Simply saying goodnight to everything that you can think of as you fall asleep. Another favorite, Guess How Much I Love You. The story between a mother and her baby, and the illustrations of the rabbits are so cute. It's such a sweet, endearing story. And I love the point of the story is that sometimes we don't realize how much we're actually loved until it is pointed out. And you forget of all the various ways that you are loved from different people in your life that sometimes you do take for granted. One of the longer stories that was easy to break down in chapters was Winnie the Pooh. But again, they had such touching points during them about friendships and support and humor and love, the caring of individuals for their friends and their communities. Such a creative book, and one of my new all-time favorite books is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse by Charlie Maxey. I'm sure you're aware of it, but if you haven't read it, you must. It's a beautifully illustrated book. The words, the story, the care that he put into this story. It's a story I could read over and over because it is so beautiful. And the last one that I'd like to tell you about is one called Nightlights. They're stories that you can read to your child that encourage a calmness and a confidence and a creativity through the story. They're very clever. It's great for using your imagination. And it's something that helps you fall asleep just by imagination. It leads you perfectly into dreams. I think they've done a series of Nightlights. But my son and I never got bored of rereading several of the stories over and over. Again, that's something that makes falling asleep to a story special. It's the trigger to remind you that it's time for sleep. Time for relaxing. Time for doing nothing at all. Time for dreaming. And just like the end of the day and the feeling of being tired from a long, long day, you can simply now just rest, sleep, and dream. And as always, I hope you rest well. Be well. Sweet dreams and good night.